6,400 Persians, dead on a beach in a single afternoon. The Greeks lost 192. That is not a battle, that is a demolition. And it was carried out by one city, with no cavalry, no archers, and no allies except a small town nobody remembers. So, victory. Go home. Build a statue. Except, nobody went home. Because the Greeks looked up from the bodies, out at the water, and saw the Persian fleet doing something that made no sense at all. It was not sailing east. It was sailing south, toward a city with nobody in it. 26 miles away, defended by old men. Because every soldier Athens had was standing right here, on this beach, wearing another man's blood. They had just won the battle. Now they had to win the race. And that is the part nobody tells you. The Battle of Marathon did not end at Marathon. You already know a piece of this story. You know the wrong piece. There is a man in it who runs 26 miles from the battlefield to Athens, carrying the news. He reaches the city, shouts that they have won, and drops dead on the stones. That is where the marathon comes from. Every runner on Earth is retracing his last steps. He never ran it. Herodotus wrote this battle down about 50 years later, and he is our only real source. He is also a man obsessed with detail. He tells us which hand a soldier lost. He tells us which ship it happened on. He tells us the name of the soldier's brother, and the most famous run in human history? Not a word. That story was invented in 1879 by an English poet who took two separate journeys and welded them into one dramatic death because it made a better poem. 17 years later, the first modern Olympics put a race on the schedule to honor it. So we built a global sport on a poem. The real run was bigger, much bigger. But to get to it, you have to get through the battle first. And the battle is worse than you think. September, 490 BC. A plain 26 miles from Athens and a bay full of Persian ships. They belong to Darius, and he has not come to conquer Greece. He has come to make an example of it. He has already made the point once on this trip. Eretria, a city just across the water, held out for 6 days. On the 7th, somebody inside opened the gates. The Persians burned the temples and marched the entire population onto the boats as slaves. Those people are still on those ships, sitting in the bay, where the Athenians can see them. That is not an accident. That is a message. Athens is next, and the man who picked this landing site is Athenian. Hippias, the tyrant Athens threw out 20 years earlier. Old now. Home now. Standing on a Persian deck, pointing at flat open ground because flat open ground is good for cavalry. So Athens does the obvious thing and sends for Sparta. They send a professional courier named Phidippides, who covers 150 miles of mountain road in under 2 days, which is its own kind of insane. And Sparta says no. Not cowardice. Law. There is a religious festival on, and Spartans do not march before the full moon. The moon is 6 days away. 6 days. So it is Athens. 10,000 men, plus one small town called Plataea, which sends every man it has, and which nobody has thanked properly in 2,500 years. That is the entire Greek army. Everyone else stayed home. For days, nothing happens. Two armies on one plain, staring at each other, neither one moving. And inside the Greek camp, the command is coming apart. There are 10 generals, and they are split 5 to 5. Half say wait for Sparta, half say attack now. Nobody can break the tie except one man, Callimachus, the war archon. Miltiades goes to him, and his argument is not about tactics at all. Herodotus kept it. It rests with you, Callimachus, either to bring Athens into slavery, or to secure her freedom and leave behind a memory for all generations of men. That is not a briefing. That is a man telling another man how history is going to remember him. Callimachus votes to fight. And then, one morning, the Greeks look down at the beach and see something that settles the timing for them. The Persians are loading the ships. Half the infantry is already aboard. The horses are being walked up the ramps. Whatever Datis is planning, a landing somewhere else, a run straight at Athens, for the next few hours, the Persian army on that beach is the smallest it is ever going to be. Miltiades gives the order. Before anything moves, you need to understand one thing about these two armies, because everything that follows runs on it. Persia fights at range, Greece fights up close. That is the whole war in 5 words. A Persian infantryman is an archer. His weapon is a bow that outranges anything on that plain, and his entire job is to break you before you ever reach him. A Greek hoplite is the opposite animal. He is a wall of bronze with a spear, and he is useless at a distance and catastrophic at arm's length. So the Persians want the fight to happen far away. The Greeks want it to happen so close you can smell it. Hold on to that. It explains the next 10 minutes. Now watch what Miltiades does with his line. A phalanx is normally 8 ranks deep, and depth is where its power comes from. Rank shoving rank, a wall that walks. But the Persian line is wider than his. If he matches that width at full depth, he runs out of men. If he keeps his depth, the Persians simply reach around both ends and roll him up. So he does something no Greek commander has done. He stretches his line to match theirs, and he pays for it by gutting his own middle. Reconstructions put the Athenian center at 4 ranks, half strength, a deliberate weak point, in the middle of his own army, on purpose. Every man he pulls out of the center, he stacks into the wings. And now look at what is standing directly opposite that gutted middle. The Persians have put their best troops there. Persian regulars and Sakai, and by some reconstructions, 10 ranks deep. It is their standard play. Strongest in the center, punch straight through. Cut the enemy in half. So the strongest part of the Persian army is aimed at the weakest part of the Greek one. Miltiades knows that. That is the plan. A mile of open ground. 8 stays. Now, a question. You are standing at one end of it, in bronze, and the men at the other end are the best archers in the world. What do? Remember the rule. Persia fights at range. Every second you spend on that ground is a second spent inside the part of the fight they win. There is exactly one answer, and every man on that line already knows it. You run.
Herodotus says they ran the whole mile. He also says they were the first Greeks in history ever to charge an enemy at a run, which tells you how strange this looked to everybody watching.
Most historians today do not buy the full mile. So count what the man is carrying. Bronze helmet, armor on his chest, bronze on his shins, an 8-foot ash spear, a shield 3 feet across. Now sprint a mile in that. Now arrive at the far end and fight a war. Probably not. The likelier version, and it does not make this any less insane, is that they crossed most of the plain fast and broke into a run the moment the first arrows came down. The last 200 meters, about 30 seconds. 30 seconds is not long. Try counting it while people shoot at you. And on the other side of that field, the Persians are watching this happen. And Herodotus tells us exactly what they concluded. These men have gone mad. No horses, no archers, no sense.
10,000 people in bronze running at a wall of arrows, on purpose.
Then the lines hit, and the rule comes due. Persia fights at range. The Greeks have just taken that away from them, permanently, in about 30 seconds. Every archer on that beach is now holding a bow inside a knife fight. Look at what he has left. A short spear, a shield of wicker and hide. Almost no body armor, because armor was never the plan. The plan was that you would die 100 meters away. Now look at the man standing on his chest. Bronze on the head, bronze or hardened linen on the body, bronze on the shins. A shield of wood faced in bronze covering him from chin to knee. and a spear 2 feet longer than anything the Persian is holding. Where the Greeks are deep, this stops being a battle. It is a machine running over people. Both wings break almost immediately, but in the middle, the arithmetic runs the other way.
4 ranks of Athenians are standing against the best troops in the Persian Empire, stacked 10 deep. And depth wins. The Persians push. The thin Greek center gives ground and keeps giving it.
Herodotus says the fighting there went on a long time. Think about what that sentence means for the men inside it. They are the sacrifice. They were made thin on purpose and nobody told them why. They are going backwards, one step at a time, in the dust, with the line bending around them, and no way on earth to know whether this is the plan working or the army dying. And the Persians in that center think they are winning, so they push harder. They push through.
Which is the single worst thing they could have done.
Because now the Persian center has driven itself into a hole in the Greek line. And on both sides of that hole, the Greek wings have already finished their fight and have nothing to do.
Here is where the battle turns, and it turns on something armies almost never manage.
They do not chase. Think about who these men are. Farmers, potters, citizens, not professionals. They have just broken the enemy in front of them. That enemy is running, and there is an open plain to run him down on. Every instinct in a human being says, go. Most armies in history do go, and that is usually the exact moment a one battle gets thrown away. The Athenian and Plataean wings stop, they reform, and they turn inward. Then they close. Both wings wheel in on the Persian center from left and right at the same moment, and the troops who were winning 10 seconds ago now have Greeks in front of them. Greeks on both sides, and nowhere to put a bow. Which brings the rule around one last time. The best soldiers in Darius's army are now packed into a shrinking box, pressed too tight to shoot, holding wicker against bronze.
They are fighting the exact battle they were built never to fight.
The Persian army stops being an army. It runs for the ships. What happens at the water is the ugliest part of the day. The Greeks chase them into the surf, waist deep, grabbing at holes, shouting for fire, trying to burn the fleet where it floats.
And this is where the Athenians lose most of their own dead. Out of formation, in the water, the shield wall gone. Every advantage they had 10 minutes ago, gone with it. Men fighting one at a time against crews defending their own ships.
Callimachus dies here. The man whose single vote started this, killed in the shallows a few hours later. So does the general Stesilaus. And here, Herodotus stops the entire narrative to record one death. Not because of who the man was, because of who his brother was.
Cynaegirus, son of Euphorion, got his hand onto the stern of a Persian ship. Somebody brought an axe down on it.
He died in the water. His brother was somewhere on that same beach. Remember that. It matters in about 8 minutes. The Greeks captured 7 ships. The rest got clear.
6,400 Persians, 192 Athenians, 11 Plataeans.
It should be over.
It is not.
The surviving Persians are on the water, and they are not sailing east. They turn south, because Datis has just worked something out, and in about 30 seconds, the Athenians are going to work it out too.
He does not need to beat this army. He has tried that. He needs to get past it.
And here is the rule one final time on a completely different scale. Persia has just lost the close fight, so Persia goes back to doing what Persia does, winning at distance. Except now the distance is not 100 meters of arrows, it is 70 miles of open sea. And the target is not a soldier, it is an empty city.
Athens is 26 miles behind that beach. Every fighting man it has is standing here, in the surf, exhausted, wounded, wearing other men's blood. The walls are held by old men and slaves, and the fleet is carrying Hippias, who used to rule the place, and who still knows people inside it who would open a gate for him. The sea route runs south around Cape Sunion and up the far side, 70 miles. The land route is 26.
The Athenians watch the sails turn south, and they understand instantly. So they leave a detachment on the field to guard the dead, and the rest of the army starts moving. 10,000 men in armor. On the same day, they fought a battle. That is the race. Not one messenger carrying good news. An entire army running the first marathon. A city behind them, a fleet moving alongside them on the water, and absolutely no way to know who is winning. There is no dramatic account of this march. Herodotus deals with the whole thing in one line. They went as fast as their feet could carry them, and they got there first.
That is it. That is the sentence. Sit with what it is actually describing.
The Persian ships round Sunian. They come up the coast. They put in at Phaleron, the harbor of Athens, and they look at the shore, expecting an empty city. The army is already there.
Drawn up, in formation, waiting.
The same men, the same shields still notched from that morning, standing between the ships and the city for the second time in one day.
The Persians did not land. They sat offshore, looked at that line for a while, and sailed for Asia.
Darius's expedition was finished, not because the Greeks killed enough of them, because 10,000 men outran a fleet. The Athenians broke their own rules for these men.
Normally, the dead came home. Athens had tombs, families, ceremonies, an entire system for it. Not this time. These men were buried where they fell, under a mound of earth heaped up on the plain.
It is still there. You can walk up it. It takes about a minute. And the survivors were given a word. Marathonomakoi, marathon fighters. For the rest of their lives, in a city obsessed with rank, that single word outranked almost anything else a man could be. Which brings us back to the beach, and the axe, and the brother.
Aeschylus lived another 34 years. He became the most celebrated playwright in the Greek world. He won the prize at the great festival again and again. He invented most of what we still call tragedy, and his plays are being performed somewhere on Earth tonight, 25 centuries later.
He wrote his own epitaph. It does not mention a single play, not one line, not the festivals, not the prizes, not the work that outlived his entire civilization.
It says only this, that the grove of Marathon could speak of his courage, and the long-haired Persian knew it well.
The greatest writer of his age was given one last chance to say what he was.
And he did not say writer.
So the run is real. It was just never one man. There was no lone messenger gasping out good news and dying on the stones. There was an army that fought a battle at dawn, watched the enemy try to sail around them, and ran 26 miles in armor to get home first. Every marathon since 1896 has been run in honor of a death that never happened. Not the poem, not the messenger, not the last words nobody said.
10,000 men who had already won and ran anyway.